its leader. This is NBC30 News at 5:30.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jerry Brooks.
I'm Lisa Carberg. We're also live online at NBC30.com. First at 5:30, continuing coverage of a teen tragedy in Wolcott.
3 teenagers, including a brother and sister, killed in an accident this morning on Route 322. Their car crashed into a delivery truck. They would have been in class if it weren't for an unscheduled day off from school. NBC30's Amanda Rouse live in Wolcott with more. Amanda.
Jerry, the community of Wolcott is mourning after a day off from school turned deadly for 3 high school students. Now, the students were on their way and went to go get breakfast after learning their school was closed due to that water main break. It was on their way back when the fatal accident occurred. Police say the teen's Subaru was on East Street when it clipped the back of a boat on another vehicle. The car then crossed the center line and smashed into a utility truck. Police identified the kids as 17-year-old Anthony Apruzes and his 14-year-old sister Jessica and 15-year-old Tamara Correa. All 3 were students at Wolcott High School. We're told the 2 girls were avid dancers. They were freshmen at the high school. Anthony was a senior.
Emotionally, it's kind of overwhelming when 3 kids get hit at the same exact time, 8:15, 8:30 in the morning.
The high school does plan to have grief counselors on hand tomorrow when students return back to school. We're also told that friends of the victims plan to hold a candlelight vigil tonight for those 3 young lives lost. Reporting live in Wolcott, Amanda Rouse, NBC30 News. Jerry, back to you.
Thank you, Amanda. Our team coverage will continue at 6. Doug Green will report on a town mourning the sudden loss of 3 teens.
Carberg, tonight a town is in shock after 3 students in Wolcott High lost their lives in a car accident.
The victims, including a brother and sister, had just stopped for breakfast after school had been canceled because of a water main break.
We have team coverage beginning with NBC30's Deborah Bogsty in Wolcott. Deborah.
Well, Lisa, Jerry, a tragic and emotional day out here at the crash scene. It was about 8:20 this morning, just behind me where the crash happened. You can see the road has reopened now, but it was closed much of the day. Now, those 3 teenagers died in this crash on a day they normally would have been in school. However, a water main break did force their high school to close for the day. The crash shut down East Street for hours as Wolcott police investigated what went wrong. Word of the tragedy spread quickly as dozens of teens and adults arrived and watched in horror. Some teens actually saw the crash happen.
The truck went to pull in and clipped the side of it, spun around, box truck hit him.
Behind the wheel of the Subaru, 17-year-old Anthony Apruzes, who records show has a history of driving problems. His 14-year-old sister Jessica and her friend 15-year-old Tamara Correa were also in the car. None of them survived after clipping this boat and then hitting this box truck, police say, at a high rate of speed. Relatives gathered at the scene, even stopping to look at the wreckage, and a priest stopped by to help them cope.
It's everybody's worst nightmare. And unfortunately for 2 families, it came true.
Among those stopping at the site, this former high school history teacher who once coached Anthony in a basketball camp.
I think it's awful. I think I've said this to many people, it's the most difficult situation you can come into in teaching, is coming in the next day and seeing an empty desk. It's much worse for the family and the people involved, but for a teacher, it's still a traumatic experience.
And we can tell you this was not Anthony Apruzes' first crash. Authorities say he pleaded guilty in July to a DUI crash that happened in March. His license was suspended by the DMV for 3 months right after the crash. There was no additional suspension after that guilty plea. Meanwhile, we can tell you that police have not yet decided if there will be any charges filed against either of the other drivers in this crash. Reporting live here in Wolcott, Deborah Bogsty, NBC30 News. Lisa, back to you.
Thank you, Deborah. And word of the accident spread quickly, and before long, there were hundreds of teenagers showing up at the scene. Police urged crowds to gather at the town green, where grief counselors were brought in. NBC30's Doug Green joins us from Wolcott with that part of the story. Doug.
Lisa, the superintendent of schools here, Thomas Smith, tells us kids think they're immortal. Well, you can see what effect this crash has had on the kids here. This group of 5 is just walking away. The Congregational Church is across the street from them there. There were hundreds of kids here earlier looking to each other for an explanation. The pastor from the Congregational Church gave it a shot.
Lord, help us to grieve. Help us to cry because...
The prayer on the Wolcott Green is part of a town-wide effort to deal with this tragedy. To hug familiar